listening to Planet Vero Radio. I am Cindy Schwarz, and we are broadcast on Real Radio. We are also podcast live on Spreaker, and I have my co-host on Skype with me, Jeane Rollo. Jeane, how are you doing today? We're going to talk about how doctors don't listen.
That sounds good to me.
Okay, so I'm going to do you want to start or do you want me to start? I've got a couple of pages here, and I was just fascinated by it, but the other side to it, I really wasn't, because you and I talk about it every week we know this stuff happens, and we're trying to get people to listen to us, because it's really common sense in a lot of this stuff. And a lot of these things can be changed pretty quickly if people do pay attention and they do communicate. That's the key word, communication. So why don't you go ahead and then I'll chime in.
Well, it all came home to me last week when I was having a conversation about a doctor about some numbers I used. 250,000 to 400,000 a year are medically harmed. And he said, well, I was wrong. I was giving the wrong impression. I said that these are depending on the sources, that there's no hard and fast number because the medical community isn't transparent. But no matter what I said, this doctor just kept going back to one thing. I said this, and I had said that I didn't say these numbers were accurate per se, because no one really knows, because the medical system isn't transparent, but he wasn't listening. So this brought the whole idea to my head that not only do they not listen when you're presenting something they don't like for you to say, but when you go to the doctor, a lot of times they're not listening. They'll have their heads buried in the computer screen. They will interrupt you after a few short seconds, and so you don't get out what you wanted to say. So it is everywhere, and it's not only doctors, but nurses do it too. They just don't seem to have the time or even the will to listen to patients. And so a lot of mistakes can be made because they will not listen. So on your note of that to me in an email, I kind of just quick Googled it. You know, we all love Google, and we know some of it's not true, and a lot of it is true. And so I found a white paper, and it is in the NIH.gov website, so you can kind of rely on that. It's from January 4th of 2021, so fairly recent. And the title of the paper is Medical Error Reduction and Prevention. And it talks about, the first statement is, what is interesting about surgical errors is that these errors appear to be more common before and after surgery and not necessarily during the surgery. Right.
Okay, so they attributed maybe the stuff that happens in the surgery to before and after. Okay, so here we go. Lack of adequate surgeon training and education, a major gap in communication between and I'm laughing just with us, communication between the surgeon, anesthesiologist, and other ancillary staff, gap in communication between the surgeon and the patient, rush to complete cases, and human factors. So, I mean, isn't that what we talk about every week?
It is. And, to further compound this, at the same time, I was going through this with this doctor, Misty from Medical Patient Modesty sent me a copy of an email she had received from a spouse of a veteran who went to a VA hospital, and he has in his file, and he has said time and time again that he does not want female doctors. Well, he was assigned a female doctor, and he just kind of froze. The wife did too. And he was sitting there, and they were saying that, they don't like female doctors for intimate care. And she had him leave on his underwear. So he was on the table. Then all of a sudden, without permission, she reaches down and exposes him. And he was mortified. The wife was mortified. And because she didn't listen to this patient and to this patient's wife, this man has canceled his surgery. He's not getting surgery. So she put his life in danger by not listening.
And his medical ability, his mental life in danger, and no one ever seems to talk about that.
No. So, listening can cause, not listening, can cause so much harm if they would just stop and think about it. By not listening, if you tell them you have an adverse reaction to a medication or an allergy to a medication, if they're not listening, it may not make it into the medical records. And that can kill someone.
Well, that's one of the things that I highlighted on this paper. It was quite a few pages long, this paper. And it says right in there that the communication issues is unbelievable with that, on how the pre-op really is a huge factor, like I just said, because if they don't listen, anesthesiology drugs or anesthesia drugs are some of the biggest things that are abused and are not caught. Their number one concern is the adverse reaction of drug events. And number one for that is anesthesia drugs.
Right.
So this is serious stuff.
Yes. I mean, they have to start listening. I mean, it is our bodies. We know them. We're telling them things. They really have to listen because we are the best person to get information from.
And a lot of it, too, I have highlighted on some of this, too, is that some of the doctors have such egos that nobody can broach that. Even a nurse, if you say, like maybe, grab a nurse off to the side and say, listen, this is really important. I cannot have fentanyl or whatever you want to say. Maybe you think she'll be a good go-between, but a lot of times that can't happen because that doctor's not going to listen to anybody.
No.
And that's highly known. I mean, a lot of people know, well, yeah, and surgeons are like that. And I get it that they have to keep patients at arm's length, because they deal with people's lives every day. I get that. But there's still a wall that needs to come down a little bit with the communication. Right.
And there's also the thing where they listen and hear it, but they decide to go ahead and you're going to have that fentanyl no matter what. Mm-hmm. So there's also that flip side where they do listen, they do hear, but yet they don't care.
Yeah, and I do not get that because why, lack of a better word, is that such a flippant reaction to it, like you're just being a pain in the neck?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's article after article on the internet about that type of attitude that they just don't feel like they should have to listen.
And another thing, too, that I found in this paper that I had to circle, and I actually did highlight it, and this is what we talk about all along when we say that patients should have surgery advocates. We should have people that actually speak up for us, not ones that are employed by the facility where you are or the doctor, is because the bottom line is through all of this, and this is my own personal experience. I know it is yours too as well, Jeannie Roller, and all the people that we get in contact with through Misty Roberts on patientmodesty.org and on Medical Patient Modesty on Facebook, is that at the end of the day, no one is prepared to accept blame or change the system.
Correct.
And that's the key thing. And that's what we're talking about. It's not necessarily about suing. Yeah, a lot of these litigations are because people have died. Well, what about the people that didn't die that are harmed and maimed for the rest of their life? We just want closure.
Right.
And we want to see it change for the next guy.
Right. And the healthcare industry does not understand that. They think it's all about money. It is not.
Mm-hmm. And we know that, and we know, so you use the figure $250,000 to $400,000 a year. I mean, I've used the figure before that I've gotten from PhD doctors who treat people like us, $1 million or more a year worldwide that are harmed, psychologically, whatever, physically, that didn't need to happen.
Well, that number was people who are actually killed by medical mistakes.
Okay.
Because there is no number of people like yourself and my husband who have just, in quotes, been harmed.
Yeah. And a lot of the... Go ahead.
So there are no numbers, which is really scary because the numbers for the number of people killed by harm is not accurate, but yet they haven't even attempted to give us a number for the people like you and my husband who have just been harmed.
Yeah, and it's like rape statistics, and so many people just don't report, And I want to just add real quick, because we have like 10 seconds left, that one of the things they did bring up here, too, is distraction. Some surgeons and other operating room staff are distracted by their own personal digital devices, and we all know that, too.
Well, that is a conversation for another day.
Yeah, we're going to do that. So we're going to say goodbye tonight, and we're going to talk about that later.